All opinions expressed on any program are those of the producer and or persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of DCTV. All producers and guests appearing on programs provide information and opinions based on information they consider to be reliable. DCTV does not affirm the completeness and accuracy. All DCTV members agree to adhere to DCTV's statement of compliance and are participants in a community medium forum where they're exercising their freedom of speech.
Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis. Welcome to the series on the network of global corporate control. Today's segment is pre-recorded. The last live segment showed you how we are staying alive and that the banking cartel is losing the struggle against corruption in the world's money system. Today's segment is called Staying the Course, thanks to DCTV, to Carmen Stanley, studio producer and director. Mo Jackson is on audio and prompter. People are now working with me and the world's wealth in a big coalition that includes the world's military powers. Many of us realize that the banking cartel has replaced all of the world's governments with corporations. We're using the common law and ditching the admiralty law system that the bankers have been using secretly to try and dominate us. Last week, I showed you the documents proving that we've beaten the banking cartel on their own terms in the law of the sea. When will the reset happen? Or are you not allowed to tell us? This is a question that was asked in the YouTube. Hearing about it from so many internet groups. And my response, I've already told you that this is a tug of war. I don't know when we'll overcome the banking cartel, just that we have over 95% chance of doing so. Most of what you're hearing on the internet about the global currency reset from, quote, so many internet groups, close quote, is just controlled opposition. Those are groups that are trying to confuse you. One of the things that's holding up the global currency reset is the fact that people need to get themselves ready to receive the world's clean money containing the world's gold. When people are so confused by the banking cartel's liars, this just shows that many people have work to do learning discernment. By its threats to arrest me with Interpol when I wouldn't allow the banking cartel to steal the world's assets in the global debt facility, the banking cartel has showed you that I'm at the center of the world's financial system, representing all of humanity in a big coalition that includes the world's military powers. Get yourself into a small group. This will also help to protect you from electromagnetic mind control weaponry. The World Bank and International Monetary Fund were set up at the end of World War II to manage the global debt facility. All of the world's monetary gold, gemstones, artworks, bonds worth $2 quadrillion owed by the central bankers were deposited at the World Bank and International Monetary Fund in a trust called the Global Debt Facility at the end of World War II by Jose Rizal and Ferdinand Marcos, his lawyer. The World Bank and the International Monetary Fund were created by Jose Rizal and Ferdinand Marcos for that special reason. The banking cartel has captured some of the Secretariat. The world's central bankers hate the World Bank and International Monetary Fund because they know full well why the World Bank and IMF were created. In an early DCTV segment, and again in the July 10th and August 28th segments, I told you that the conference that began the World Bank and IMF in 1944 voted to close the Bank for International Settlements, that's the BIS, which is the organization of 60 central banks. That is what we, together with the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF, are now doing. I'm going to update you where we stand in restoring the World Bank and IMF to their original purpose. I informed the World Bank's Human Resources Department on June 22, 2018, that Usman Diagana, the World Bank's Vice President for Human Resources, was fired for cause because he violated the World Bank's Articles of Agreement. In fact, I warned Usman Diagana on the 16th of June 2018 that the Board of Governors considered him to be corrupt and that he was breaking the World Bank's Articles of Agreement. I'm also warning other agents of the banking cartel that their tenure is not secure. Just to illustrate how continued employment of the banking cartel's agents is not assured, I recommend that you watch the June 2, 2015 segment of this series, which talks about what happened following inquiries into the corruption on the D.C. Council with Dave Svenyak, who was counsel to the D.C. Council. On the 16th of August, I spoke with the World Bank's Human Resources Group, and that's case number 313-06108. The World Bank's Secretariat is an extension of the banking cartel, and the World Bank is out of compliance with its Articles of Agreement. This means, in other words, that there's a tug of war going on at the World Bank between humanity and the banking cartel over the world's wealth. The world's wealth is safely in the global debt facility, administered by the Board of Governors of the World Bank. The World Bank's Secretariat is ignoring the Board of Governors. I'm starting out with the fact that I'm denied access to the headquarters building and don't have my ID, for starters. Then there's the fact that Jim Kim is not respecting the Board of Governors, who fired him for failing to follow the Articles of Agreement of the World Bank. The World Bank's Vice President for Human Resources, Usman Diagana, has also already had his employment at the World Bank terminated and is now pretending that he's still working at the World Bank. And in the teleprompter, you should see page 6. Do all the staff at headquarters of the World Bank need to be discharged until they follow the directives of the Board of Executive Directors and Board of Governors? As I said, a lie is a lie and truth is truth. The military powers of the world will keep peace during this transition, where our job is to put the banking cartel's lies to rest. Stay tuned. A well-informed group in America, including the loyal military who've been working together with the Joint U.S.-Japan Committee under the Status of Forces Agreement, is ready to join with the Coalition for the Rule of Law on the Board of Governors that was predicted by the power transition model that came to the World Bank from the U.S. Department of Defense in 2004. Aaron Brochus, who helped to write the World Bank's Articles of Agreement as a young counselor in the Dutch Embassy, went on to serve between 1959 and 1978 as the longest-serving General Counsel. Aaron Brochus was my mentor for many years. The General Counsel's most important function is to provide a proper interpretation of the Articles of the World Bank in giving voice to the Board of Executive Directors and the Board of Governors. Sandra Okoro has been relieved of her position as Senior Vice President and General Counsel of the World Bank Group. Not a single mission or embassy has defended her, nor did a single country object to the discharge of Christine Lagarde or Jim Kim or any of the other misguided officials in the Secretariat. These agents of the network of global corporate control have defied the decision of the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund to place the network of global corporate control in receivership in the global debt facility in a global currency reset. The agents of the network of global corporate control are bankrupt or about to be bankrupt under commercial liens held by the Global Debt Facility. This also goes for Brett Kavanaugh. The teleprompter for the July 3, 2018 segment on DCTV talks about the firing of Sandra Okoro. And then on the 3rd of July, we had a segment on this series called What Does This Mean? When the General Counsel of the World Bank is fired and continues to play act that she's still in office, and the same thing goes for the World Bank's Vice President of Human Resources, and the same thing goes for that play actor Donald Trump, who is not the legitimate president of the U.S., there's a crisis of confidence. I want to respond to a question about the global currency reset that Leo Freeman asked on the latest video in the DCTV archives. Leo Freeman, you may remember, told you how to access and search the documents that I place in the cloud on Amazon Web Services. BeatBud 5004 asked the question, the energy industry has been a major blocker, and Leo Freeman 3 days ago said, if a free energy system was suddenly deployed worldwide, would it cause a dangerous instability in the global economy? And my response was that we are going to have to manage the transition. This is the first time that there's ever been a world transition from corruption, and we're going to have to learn as we go. The banking cartel and black nobility at their center are clearly defeated. I turned down their agent Tiburcio Villamor Marcos and reminded people how TVM admitted that the World Bank's Board of Governors administers the world's assets in the Global Debt Facility by his inviting the Board of Governors of the World Bank on the 22nd of June 2014 to come to the Philippines after I turned him down. TVM ordered Interpol to arrest me. Interpol did nothing. TVM mentioned me on his Facebook page, and I said TVM had misrepresented me and was a liar. The banking cartel has not answered my statement that they've been defeated. Instead, the banking cartel had one of their agents try to respond. Like everything the banking cartel tries, now that we're in a reality where the banking cartel has already lost, this only backfires. Actually, I've learned that direct communication is far more powerful than documents. That's why I'm going to try and leave some time to speak to you without a teleprompter at the end of this segment. This is why I'm asking you to reach out to people who are able to operate more freely from the extremely low-frequency military mind control weapons. The banking cartel and the rest of humanity are fighting over the world's wealth. This battle is going on everywhere, but it's centered in the World Bank and International Monetary Fund because the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF are in charge of the world's wealth. Ever since Jose Rizal and Ferdinand Marcos deposited the assets in the Global Debt Facility and established the Bretton Woods institutions at the end of World War II. The World Bank and IMF are called the Bretton Woods institutions. And I'm going to give you a comment by the banking cartel sock puppet in the archives on YouTube, and that's what my response is all about. I'm in direct contact with the staff in the World Bank. On the 22nd of June 2018, Osman Diagana, the World Bank's Senior Vice President of Human Resources, was fired for breaking the World Bank's Articles of Agreement. And I'm showing you in the teleprompter on page 7. Another staff member in the World Bank's Human Resources Department, Lisa Cespedes, also lost her job for breaking the World Bank's Articles of Agreement. And then I've got a slogan for you. Love mankind, trust the majority, and never owe anyone. And then in the archives on YouTube, I asked a person who commented, named Yolanda, to just stick to the facts. The people who work at the World Bank are choosing whether to accept the fact that they've received instructions from the Board of Governors, which is in charge. Let's take it a step at a time. That's where we now are. Stay tuned. Yolanda is a sock puppet. As you can see from what's going on at the World Bank, we're at a pivot point in the global currency reset. There are many other signs that we are at the pivot point. The United States is in interregnum. That means that they don't have a legitimate government. The treasonous brass in the U.S. military hoped that they could do their treachery without getting caught, but it didn't work out for them. People are getting tired of having to click on all of the links to documents that I and others have posted over the years. The reason for all of this documentation is to convince people that all of this information that I and others are providing to you is very real, as opposed to the banking cartel's lies that many people have grown up with and are accustomed to. In the teleprompter, I'm giving you the link to a tweet that was posted on the date of a hearing of the Senate Banking Committee about Federal Reserve reform. On the 3rd of March, I mailed a notice to the Universal Postal Union. This shows that the world's assets in the global debt facility are under the control of the coalition which I'm authorized to speak for, and not under the control of the banking cartel. On the 3rd of March 2015, I attended a hearing of the Senate Banking Committee on Federal Reserve Reform. I described the hearing to Carlos Flores, a journalist who published an article in Newsweek on Espanol about me. This is the only mainstream news outlet that has ever mentioned me. Also last week, I contacted the World Bank's Human Resources Department. I'm trying to help staff at the World Bank understand that we don't want to have to fire all of them during the global currency reset. The World Bank staff are smart enough to understand which side their bread is buttered on. In other words, that the Board of Governors runs the World Bank. The banking cartel likes to confuse everyone about religion. We'll deal with this after the corruption from the banking cartel is less, so we're not vulnerable to their divide and conquer tricks. This is interfering with my responsibilities to the world's peoples. It's mere posturing after the U.S. Congress voted to extend the state of emergency, which it's done ever since 1861, thereby perpetuating the war powers of the U.S. presidency. A growing group of U.S. citizens are aware of this charade, which is played up by the mainstream media that's controlled by the same network of global corporate control that has bought and paid for the U.S. Congress. These same citizens are joining the Coalition for the Rule of Law, consisting of the BRICS, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the G77, that's 134 developing countries, and Germany. The U.S. remains without legitimate government in an interregnum until the Constitutional Convention, which is overdue after more than 2/3 of the state legislatures have demanded amendment of the Constitution under Article 5. And then Bibi Netanyahu, his audience is nothing more than discredited buffoons. When we're born, we cry that we're come to this great stage of fools. That is a statement by Shakespeare in King Lear. And now I'm going to speak extemporaneously. This is something that I've been doing now because people feel that I may be more sincere and speaking from the heart. Actually, when I write the scripts for the teleprompter, that's equally speaking from the heart. It's just that maybe my delivery when you read something is a little bit, my inflection is probably more boring. I try not to be boring, but I might be. That's too bad because it's really quite remarkable, actually, when you think about it, that I haven't been contradicted. And I've been tweeting to Donald Trump. You would think that and I've been tweeting things that are quite remarkable, which is, for example, that he's not the chief of, he doesn't command the military. This is something that he really can't permit anybody to tweet. You have to have clear lines of authority in the military, and he's not. As I said, when the U.S. Constitution went out of effect, and that was in 1871, because the bankers put a second secret constitution in place, and we've been giving you very clear information, which hasn't been contradicted. And also, if you look at the way the history has been falsified by Jesuits, it's really quite remarkable. But as I said, I've been seeing that people are not able to reason with the clear documents that I've been presenting to them. This means that we have to have personal contact, and that's also one of the reasons that I'm not just reading from the teleprompters, because, as I said, people are feeling that I'm more convincing that way. But when you try to reason and you look at the evidence, and a lot of people have been looking at the evidence, one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you is scientists are looking now to see how people reason. They've been doing the electrocardiograms and my brain imaging, and they can tell actually what people are thinking. They've been looking at the circuitry in the brain, and they've been developing very good weapons. They're actually weapons to be able to project, like hypnotism, to project things into people's thoughts. It sounds preposterous, but you can look at the patents, and you've also seen how Poland's Minister of Foreign Affairs, or actually I believe it was the Minister of Defense, has been talking about this. When you realize that these capabilities are there, then you have to try to protect yourself, and one way to protect yourself is to get into a small group and to try to figure out which things might not be your own thoughts that pop into your mind. Once you realize that these capabilities are there, it's a very different world. And that's also one of the reasons that documents aren't as convincing, because although people, when they see black and white on paper, they're being interfered with. And some people, of course, are more susceptible than others. I've been working with these weapons, and I've been subjected to them. And people who are subjected to them are called targeted individuals. I saw that there's now a demonstration of targeted individuals. So this information is becoming, it's gotten spread around. This is something that's a very good indicator that the banking cartel is losing control, and that shows us that we're turning the tables. The likelihood that we defeat the banking cartel is over 90%. This is coming from the Department of Defense National War College, and all you have to do is to stay tuned, and that's what you're going to see as we work together. And one of the nice things that happens as I stay with this problem and continue to do my job as overseer mandate trustee is that I get to sit in the center and get a lot of information that all reinforces itself. So I've been given information about how history has been falsified. I've been given information about how our health systems are really, some of the healers are under attack because they're not, they're interfering with the profits of the pharmacological industries. And all of these people that are working together are actually, it's beginning to snowball. It's not going quickly because of this mind control. But as I said, if you work hard with a group, you'll start realizing that things are not as they're being portrayed in the mainstream media and also the alternative media. And I mentioned to you at the very beginning of this series that one of the indicators that we could look to see how we were making progress was the degree of trust in the journalists. And I believe now less than 6% of the people believe that what they read in the press is true. It turns out, though, that it's not just the journalists. It's actually every single profession. You'll find that the professions are trying to keep a lid on things, and it's not working, is it? As you pay attention, you find that there's been a general breakdown in so many of these systems of control. And I've been actually under attack, but I'm bearing up well. Several months ago, I broke off contact with the Banking Cartel's agents who were trying to convince me that they were on the side of the world's people. We are now shifting gears. Many more people realize that our future depends on our ability to work together to rid the world of corruption in the world's money system. Many people have seen me learn through the years as we all work to put the puzzle pieces together in our lost history. Stay tuned as we watch the dominoes and the banking cartel fall. Until next week, I'm your host, Karen Hudis.